and the bells were ringing out on Christmas Day.
Is that better? Questions. Right, so I did get a whole bunch of questions on Instagram. I asked for them on Insta stories, but then after 24 hours, they disappeared, didn't they? They self-destruct, and I forgot to save them. So I asked again, I got a few back, and there's a few from Facebook and that kind of thing. So first question is from David. Fuji. Actually, these are in no particular order, so I'll probably get to yours, right? Favorite street camera setup? Well, the street photography you see on my Instagram account, pretty much, there's images on there that have been shot with a smartphone. In fact, the first, I think it's 70 images on my Street Thief Instagram account have been shot with an iPhone 8, 9, 10, and I'm on iPhone 11 now. But then there's images shot with a Canon 5D Mark III with a 24mm tilt shift lens, with a 24mm lens, 35mm lens. There's images with a Sony A7 III. But at the moment, and which I'm loving, and I can't see me changing, I'm shooting with, I have two cameras, right? So I have Fuji XT4, which I love, but for street photography, I have my Fuji XPro III, which I love. Listen, I'm not a tech person, but I absolutely love the ergonomics of this camera. Every time I pick this camera up, I just want to go out and shoot some street photography. I need to shoot more portraits because we've been in COVID. I've done a few bits and bobs with musicians. I was in the studio with Max last week, and we got a few portraits, but I need to shoot more portraits, kind of give it a day in court in that regard. But for street photography, it's the Xpro III. I mean, you've got this flip down screen, so you can hide that away, so you're not always chimping the camera. And it, like I said, it just feels good. The film simulations on now, the color profiles are sweet, so it cuts down on editing time. Sensor's great. I need to invest in a few more lenses, but it just feels juicy, right? I articulated that the best. I'm never going to be one of them guys who's going to do loads of camera reviews because it's just not my thing. I'm not a tech person. If it feels good, then that's good enough for me. What's next? Next question's from Chris. Do I prefer street photography or portraits? I may need to cut this video into a few. Maybe I'll answer a few questions today and we'll do a few more, because we've got 20 days of these videos, right? I love shooting street photography. See, the thing with street photography, it's solitary. It's almost like the purest form of photography for me. And it's almost like my practice ground. And I'm shooting mostly on my own. I'm not getting paid for it most of the time. I love doing it. The only thing is with street, you're not really collaborating at any stage. Well, you're collaborating with the streets and life, but you know what I mean. With portraits, I love like creating little concepts, having ideas, and then working with a model on models, and then kind of seeing that develop. I do love that. Someone asked me this morning, actually I think it was Chris, if I'm going to be introducing more portrait videos as well onto my channel, and I hope to do that. Hopefully next year I'm going to be doing more project stuff and working with bands, musicians and that kind of things, so I'll be hopefully introducing backstage stuff again. I mean, if you go back my earlier videos, there's a whole bunch of that stuff. Next question from Sarah. I'm definitely going to have to split these videos on. Who would I like to shoot, dead or alive? This is my friend Sarah D. Kate Moss, 100% for sure. But it's a little bit obvious. Is that Kate Moss? So I would say 80s Mickey Rourke. Just a character, and also has that edge about him. And just creating some portraits with Mickey Rourke, that would be pretty cool. Question from Hassan. Do you shoot on the Xpro III with a screen out? I've never seen anyone do that before, and if so, was just wondering how it helps your process. Thank you. And once again, loving the content. Well, when I'm shooting video, Sam, which is kind of where you're picking that up. When I'm shooting video, I've got I usually have Blondie strapped to here. Okay, so I kind of need to be aware. I need to be aware of what's on the peripheral. And so I'm kind of climbing two mountains at the same time, really, which can be a bit annoying. And I do tend to shoot more with this LCD screen. One of the things I will say with the Xpro III, I think the idea with the design and the build relative to this camera was to not be looking at the back of the LCD, and that's why it's tucked away, okay? It's inverted. So to see your images, and to access the screen, you have to flip it down. And who's going to do that, right? Well, me. Because it's like shooting with an old medium format camera sometimes. You can flip it down like that, you know, because you can't flip this out on the Xpro III. You can't 360. You can only flip it down. But it's like shooting with an old Rolleiflex or something. But no, I don't always shoot with the screen down. But it's more than likely that you've seen me shooting with a screen down on my videos, and well, it would only be there, and yeah, you could make that conclusion. But and I used to be a little bit purist about that. No, you need to be viewfinder all the time. But you know what? Whatever gets the shot, right? Because photography is about seeing and what I'm seeing and what you're seeing, and then hopefully getting the camera to come along for the ride. But I do love this camera, by the way, the Xpro III, and then I've got the XT4 as well. But it's the same camera, it's the same sensor, but the Xpro III has that. It just feels good, doesn't it? All right, I'm going to answer these next few as quickly as I can. What got you into street photography, and who are your biggest inspirations? My biggest inspirations, street photography is just kind of my default setting, and I've always done it before I even realised what street photography was. Well, I've always done it. I'm talking about since I picked up a camera, pretty much. Just having a camera with me and just taking photographs of what I like to take photographs of, and that's people, characters, and the streets are full of them. My biggest influence on my favourite photographer is a photographer called Astrid Kircher, who shot all of the stuff with the Beatles in Hamburg in the early '60s, and that has that kind of a street, very raw, all in black and white, obviously, but very raw, untainted feel to somebody's view. It's very innocent, the images, seat of the pants photography, and for me that is street photography. So Astrid Kircher is my favourite photographer of all time. She's not necessarily a street photographer. Always liked Don McCullin as well. So Alex here, my friend Alex, are your images led purely by aesthetic, or is there an emotional drive behind them? Aesthetic. In the first instant, it's the aesthetic, it's the visuals. In a way, it's almost kind of shallow, because it's what attracts me to it's what's getting my attention in that moment. Hopefully I'm a little bit more switched on when I've got my camera than I am when I haven't got my camera, when I'm kind of, most of the time I'm in the zombie state, so there's kind of, I'm alert to possibility. But I think the emotion can kick in though, right? So especially with the street portraits, where you're getting some of my photographs, some of the portraits are you're working with people who are a little bit sensitive. Then it can perhaps go down that road, being a little bit more emotional. You're finding out more about that person. I'm not necessarily talking just about their life story, but just by being in their closer proximity, it's just energy, isn't it? And then that can kind of influence how I'm shooting. It's definitely not a fault thing with me though, photography, not in any way. So I would say I don't know, it's a mixture of both really, but from the outset it is definitely my mum singing. From the outset, you know, what grabs my attention is kind of surface really. It's the aesthetic. Oh, I'm gonna have to stop it because we're going on. These videos are meant to be 3 minutes, weren't they? So, and I still need to take a photograph. Right,